Morning, everyone. Lots going on, and most of it is focused on Iran or Iran-related items. So Global News is reporting, exercise a high degree of caution. Canada updates Middle East travel advisories. This is yesterday at 4:47 in the afternoon. And, just in case you were planning on going to one of those Iranian beaches, doesn't she look like she's having fun? Or he, I'm not sure. If that was a woman, perhaps that would be harem. I'm not sure. Anyway, and I thought I was looking, I Googled Iranian beaches, so now I'm probably on some list somewhere. I was going to just say the name of the beach, but as I was scrolling down looking for a good name to fit in, I saw this. It says swimming in Iran beaches. Due to Islamic law, only men and children are allowed to swim in public, while women can swim but need to wear a burkini. So I was like, wow. So these women are not swimming, they're biking. Right? So much fun. Just in case you were going to go to one of the lovely beaches of Iran, don't, because, well, the war drums are beating. So here's Donald Trump, and he is being very clear in his Twitter diplomacy, and he says, quote, Iran is talking very boldly about targeting certain USA assets as revenge for our ridding the world of terrorist leader who had just killed an American and badly wounded many others, not to mention all of the people he had killed over his lifetime, including recently hundreds of Iranian protesters. He was already attacking our embassy and preparing for additional hits in other locations. Iran has been nothing but problems for many years. Let this serve as a warning that if Iran strikes any Americans or American assets, we have targeted 52 Iranian sites representing 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago, some at a very high level and important to Iran and the Iranian culture, and those targets and Iran itself will be hit very fast and very hard. The USA wants no more threats. And that's Donald Trump threatening to use the full might of the US military to basically, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but hitting very hard and very fast 52 Iranian sites if Iran so much as sneezes in their general direction. So I say again, who's gonna jump on board with Iran and support them? I don't think any major power is going to. Not Russia, not China. Oh, Toronto. Oh, Toronto. Here is the flyer for the Candlelight Vigil for the mourning the loss of the heroes of Islam, Shahid Haj Qasem Soleimani and Shalib Abdul Mahdi al-Mohandes. Sorry if I've got any of that wrong. January 4th, that's yesterday, 6 p.m., Toronto Courthouse, 361 University Avenue. This is Mahdi Youth. They're putting out this tweet, and it says, the Mahdi Youth Society, a part of Pickering's Al-Mahdi Islamic Center, has deleted not just their tweet, but their entire account. No clue if that means their pro-Soleimani event happening tonight in Toronto is also canceled. Here's what they'd posted. And it says, my society, Mahdi Youth. Salim in Sahala, there will be a candlelight to mourn hold on, sorry. Let's see the whole image here. There will be a candlelight vigil to mourn the loss of the heroes of Islam, Shahid Haj Qasem Soleimani, and Shabib Abdul Mahdi al-Mohandes in front of Toronto Courthouse at 361 University Ave at 6 p.m. on Saturday, January 4th. Okay, so they deleted that, and yet Global News is reporting anti-war protesters gather outside the U.S. consulate following Soleimani death. And this whole article is just trying to slant the pro-Islam, pro-terrorist Candlelight Vigil as an anti-war event. It's really interesting. Like this is what propaganda looks like, everyone. Just in case you were wondering, I'm just highlighting this. I don't know if I should read the whole thing. The link's in the description. I'm going to highlight this and might come back and read more of it, but we'll see. It says, but in a surprise moment, the protests for peace on the streets of Toronto became hostile. Frustration was palpable with protesters pushing one another, some angry with those who were not in support of the targeted killing of Soleimani. And again, it ends with, I'm calling on them to condemn these attacks by Trump and de-escalate the situation. This wasn't Trump. Iran attacked United States assets, and Trump, as commander-in-chief, greenlit what everyone would expect the United States to do in such a situation. Iran's a speck. Like, the United States could take a weekend and make it free. I think bring freedom to Iraq. That's what we did in 2003, right? And in 2003, people said it would take a weekend for Iraq. So I'm not actually thinking that it would take a weekend, but at this point in time, Iran is starved for money. They've lost most of their funding channels, and Trump has been systemically shutting off funding to terrorist organizations all throughout his tenure. So they don't have money. They don't have open friends. They don't have people, other governments they can rely on to join them in the fight. They've got an entire Western world that says you guys are terrorists and we're not going to do XYZ trade with you or whatever. And so what is Iran going to do? Like, it's a very different situation than Iraq was in 2003. And all of that said, that's Trump's call to make, right? Here is Toronto. This is the Post-Millennials reporting on the same event. The anti-war demonstration is actually supporters of Iranian terrorists clash with counter-protesters in downtown Toronto. Here's the article. Saturday at 6 p.m. in downtown Toronto, a Canadian Islamic organization called Mahdi Youth held a vigil for heroes of Islam, Qasem Soleimani. I'm not going to read his name again, blah, blah, blah. The Iraqi parliamentary chief, or Iranian parliamentary chief. No, it was Iraqi parliamentary chief. The pro-Iranian regime vigil was met by counter-protesters who flew pre-regime Iranian flags, American flags, and chanted "Terrorists go home." Supporters of the heroes of Islam held up enlarged photo of al-Mohandes and Soleimani, and you can see the pictures, like you can see them in the background there. Wild. And this is on the streets of Toronto. One pro-terrorist demonstrator held up a sign that read, "DJ Trump is the real terrorist," and others flew Hezbollah flags. They chanted, "Down with USA and Israel," and "We stand for peace." The two groups were mostly separated by the heavy police presence on the ground. And there's video here. I'm not going to show most of it right here. One Iranian counter-protester, Nasser Pouli, was irate with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and mocked him for praying in a mosque. "We don't need you to go to Iranian stores, Mr. Trudeau. Clean up this shit. Clean up your mess." He also accused the pro-Iranian terrorist demonstrators of being paid to hold the vigil. So you can watch that. The demonstration and counter-demonstration continued with no signs of slowing down, and there were tense moments on the ground. At least one physical altercation occurred between members of the two groups. As the clashes continued, Senator Linda Frum tweeted out that she hopes 2020 will be the year the government lives up to its pledge to list the IRGC as a terrorist entity. This vigil in the streets of Toronto is a protest in support of Iranian regime-sponsored terror. And here's Ms. Frum's tweet. And yeah, it's a very interesting situation. Here is more images from the Candlelight Vigil. There's a close-up of Mr. Soleimani. There's a video. Links in the description if you want to have a deeper dive into this stuff. It's pretty incredible considering. And here's another source. Lots of video from this. Here's what Hezbollah is, just in case you're not sure of what Hezbollah is. Global News, Hezbollah operative collected information on Toronto Pearson's airport. A Hezbollah operative collected detailed information about Toronto's Pearson Airport, according to a report circulated by Canada's Air Safety Agency and obtained by Global News. The June 18 Canadian Air Transport Security Authority, CATSA, report reproduced an article about al-Qurani, a member of Hezbollah's external operations unit, the Islamic Jihad organization. A sleeper agent based in the United States, Qurani visited Pearson Airport 7 times and gathered information about security measures there until his arrest, the CATSA open source information report says. Qurani also scouted New York's JFK airport and U.S. government facilities. He passed the results of his surveillance activities to his Hezbollah handler in Lebanon on digital storage devices, so USB sticks. And there's more to this as well, but I just wanted to point out that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. Donald Trump has and the United States has designated it as such, and Canada agreed to designate it as such in 2018, which is incredible. Now there's more footage of the report, but which is incredible. I'm not going to go through this. The link is in the description, but this says how Trump's terrorist designation of Iran's Revolutionary Guard impacts its economy. The designation from a foreign government's military is a major first on the international stage, etc. And here is Tom Quiggin, and he says, Justin Trudeau has been ambiguous on Iran. He said he would list the Iran Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist entity in Canada, but he apparently lied on this issue and did not do it. Here's the open parliament session in May 9th, 2019, where it is said by Garnet Genius, quote, "It should be well known to those who work on these files that the Iran Revolutionary Guard has engaged in all of these activities. Another review of the process for listing, when the government said a year ago that it would immediately list the IRGC, is just not up to what Canadians expect. It looks like the government is trying to hide behind long process explanations. Why can it not just answer the question? If the Liberals voted to do it a year ago, why can they not get it done? So they voted last year, and here's an article that talks about that and gets into it, and I will read it. National Post, and this is reported June 27th, 2019. Canada needs to recognize Iran's Revolutionary Guard in its entirety as a terror group. And it says the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, is not listed in its entirety as a terrorist entity by the government of Canada, despite its long record of support for acts of terror. Instead, only the Quds Force, the armed wing of the IRGC, is listed as a terrorist group. Okay, so what Soleimani was the general of, the Quds group, the Quds Force, is listed in Canada as a terrorist organization. I just want to make that clear because it's important, but the rest of the IRGC is not. So anyway, as far as I understand it, he was the general of the Quds Force, right? The elite Quds Force, that was his. So anyway, back to this. It is of grave concern to both grassroots Jewish and Iranian communities in Canada that only one segment of an infamous state-sponsored terrorist army is recognized as a terrorist group. Last summer, a private member's motion by MP Garnet Genius received bipartisan support in the House of Commons, calling on the government of Canada to correct this omission by listing the entirety of the IRGC as a terrorist group. A similar motion was introduced in the Senate in December in 2018 by Senator Frum. A year has elapsed since the motion has passed. The group has yet to be so designated, despite the clearly expressed will of Parliament. A branch of Iran's military tasked with upholding the brutal Islamic dictatorship and supporting its terror proxies such as Hezbollah and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the IRGC, is a quintessential example of an influential group with clear, radical, and violent intentions. It also has a long history of acting on these intentions. It is astonishing that our government continues to remain passive in the face of one of the world's most serious threats to peace and security. After all, last June in the House of Commons, the Prime Minister stated, "Mr. Speaker, we deeply oppose Iran's support for terrorist organizations, its threat towards Israel, its ballistic missile program, and its support for the murderous Assad regime. We will always defend human rights and hold Iran to account for its actions." For many Canadians of Iranian origin, the question of terrorism and the impact it can have hits far too close to home. Ever since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, the Tehran regime has openly positioned itself as a major promoter of violence, terror, and hate. Political repression and the notorious religious police continue to act against religion and ethnic minorities such as Baha'is and anti-regime Iranians. The current Iranian regime is the inspiration behind the infamous and disturbing Al-Quds Day demonstrations and Asbura marches, that occur in major cities worldwide. The IRGC supports these demonstrations, which demonize Israel and incite hatred toward Jews and other religions. The entire IRGC should be listed promptly. It makes little sense to ban only the military wing of a terrorist organization, whether Hezbollah or the IRGC. The United Kingdom recently acknowledged this by banning Hezbollah in its entirety after previously exempting its political wing. In April, the United States officially listed the IRGC as a terrorist group, and Act the B'nai B'rith Canada, as well as many Iranian Canadians, lauded as an example for the Canadian government to follow. Despite the passing of Mr. Genius's private member's motion last year, bureaucratic measures have delayed any action from being taken here at home. And that's still the case, right? And remember Miriam Monsef? She's Iranian. So isn't it interesting? All of this stuff is swirling around, and these organizations have been designated as terrorist organizations for at least a year, or close to a year. And in Canada, the will of the Parliament has been for more than a year that they be designated as terrorist organizations. And still very tolerant of these demonstrations supporting and promoting a terrorist, heading a terrorist or a designated terrorist organization. Isn't it incredible? Welcome to Canada, right? Tolerance, so much tolerance that you can actually get into a fight with somebody if you promote Canadian values over a terrorist. Interesting. What times we live in. Is this what being a post-national state means? Because if it is, let's go back to being a nationalistic state. Because this isn't working out for a lot of people. Right? This garbage shouldn't be on our streets. My goodness. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Look at that. People are... yeah, here. This photo of Iranian Supreme Leader was being passed around and people were posing with it. Right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Check out CanadaPoly.com and have a wonderful, wonderful day.